I'm just chilling out here with one of our little friends. Share the backyard. Don't worry, buddy. Just come to hang out for a few minutes. Hey, it's Josh, and I'm back once again. It's been a while since I posted a video. Thought I'd take a few minutes just as the sun goes down here in my backyard to touch base and share a few thoughts that I wanted to put out there to the internet universe. I'm trying to take a little bit of a break from social media for the next little while, so I might not be posting videos as frequently. But I wanted to at least touch base before I do that. I have some pretty big experiences coming up. I'll definitely be sharing some insights from those in the coming weeks, but I might be offline for a little bit. And yeah, I just wanted to share some thoughts around some feedback I've been getting from some of my videos. Now, for the most part, I'm really so appreciative of the connections I've made just from this channel. And for those of you who have sort of found some resonance with some of my experiences that I'm sharing, and shared your own thoughts related to that. Having said that, one thing that does seem to come up every now and then related to what might seem to be a sort of a positive angle that I'm framing my experiences, that this is an overall, positive existence that we're in. And certainly there is room for us to wake up and to not be so attached to our own delusions and to see that there is something beyond this physical, very materialistic reality that we're in, clearly. But when I present this angle, some people are like, oh, no, great, thanks for sharing, this is beautiful. However, how can you have such a positive outlook when clearly there's so much horror going on in the world? How can you say that the universe is looking after us when obviously there's torture and volcanoes and natural disasters and violence and war, and every day I hear about more and more of this terrible stuff happening? Aren't you like seeing the world through rose-colored glasses sort of thing? Aren't you being an idealist versus a realist? If you're invested in seeing the world in that way, it's going to be very hard for someone to convince you otherwise, because what you focus on expands. There's that principle that is just a universal principle, a universal truth, that what you direct your energy on is what will grow in your life. That which you resist persists. So if that's what you're really invested in seeing, and that's what you put your energy on, focusing on, and that's what you keep like pondering and trying to figure out, what's all this negative stuff happening, why, what is it? That's going to be what you see more of in your life. That's going to seem what is the pervasive reality that you live in. So until you start to shift, no matter what I say, it's not going to click with you until you experientially see it in a different way. But let me just, off the top of my head, and I haven't scripted this or thought of what I'm going to say, so this might not be very well thought out, but this is just how I see it. And maybe you can start to frame it differently. For those of you who can sort of see it that way, like, yeah, lovey-dovey, good, but look at this world's full of horrible stuff. How does the universe let that happen? How does God or Source let that happen if it's supposed to be good? Why isn't it all bliss? So let me just share a little bit of how I see it, frame it a little differently for you, and then just be open. I'm not saying that the bad things are going to go away. But one way to look at it is, first of all, would we be born into this, would we choose to come into this physical reality, let's say, from, say, a more energetic reality, from connecting with, say, source energy, universal consciousness, however your belief system works. But from my experiences, it seems that we come from oneness, unity, into this duality reality to learn some things, to experience things from a unique perspective, as opposed to just oneness, which is the ultimate reality, but there's no duality to experience oneself within. So we choose to come into this droplets of individual consciousness to experience. It's good versus bad is really our own subjective observation. Now that might sound pretty like hard to digest when some things are really clearly bad, right? Like you can think of all sorts of things. I've heard all sorts of examples. What about this? What about that? That's really bad. That can't be neutral. But ultimately, what is negative versus what is positive is we're attaching that value to it. Things just are. The other thing is that our own true, pure nature is kindness, compassion, is purity, is like our essence is love. Just because that's the case, it doesn't mean that we aren't acting on all sorts of delusions. Like many of us, most of the planet, I would say, is completely deluded by fear and anger and divisiveness and us versus them, and the ego needs to be strengthened from the separation of myself from them, or my belief from them, or my country from theirs. And it's really easy to invest in that very strongly and then say, we need to arm ourselves against the bad, and we need to protect against this, and we need to be against this. And these delusions create suffering. So certainly there is a lot of self-created or man-made, generated, delusionally created suffering that we go through. Just because that exists does not mean the universe is inherently bad, or that we don't need that as part of our learning. When you have suffering, you know what pleasure and goodness is, and what the alleviation of suffering feels like. When you have darkness, you know what light is. When you have bad, you know good. There's that contrast, that duality, the yin and the yang, do complement each other, and this is what unity comes from, this duality of these seemingly opposites. Once we have that middle road, we can see the bigger picture and see it's all one. So the other thing to consider is, what if we came into this world and thinking that it should be all perfect and blissful, like heaven on earth? What would be the challenge to overcome? What would be the potential learning that we could have? What would be the different perspectives that we could get? Why would we even have this reality? We assume that negative experiences are bad and should not happen, but these force growth. These are things that we overcome. These force us to sort of reach out of this illusion that we're in towards an awakening experience. And many people who have had to overcome these, disasters in their life, it's the catalyst for an awakening, for self-realization. Now, that doesn't mean that suffering is good. Obviously, what part of my feeling of the spiritual journey that we're on is to understand the alleviation of suffering, that it is not necessary. Pain is going to be inevitable, but suffering is an optional thing. So once you've sort of experienced things from a different perspective, once you sort of had awakening experiences, you don't look at the bad things that are happening in this world as overwhelming as they seem to be when you're very focused on it and invested in this is all so hard. In Buddhism, they call this cycle of birth and death and suffering samsara. And it's like we're stuck in the illusion of Maya. And until we see past these delusions or wake up, we continue to repeat this cycle. But if you're watching this, you're in a very gifted situation that you have access to internet, and you're searching, you're looking for answers, you're looking for dharma, which is like maybe a spiritual path or whatever that might be for you. And be very, very grateful that you're in a situation that you can contemplate these ideas. You're not in a necessarily, I'm trying not to get shot and just finding my next scrap of food to live to the next day, where you don't have time to even contemplate these things. So take this opportunity to really be grateful for the fact that you're watching this, you're considering these concepts, you're on some sort of quest for higher understanding or knowledge or seeking, and be very grateful and realize the situation you're in is actually probably pretty good, no matter, not discarding the potential extreme hardships you may have had to deal with in your own life, and I don't know half of what some people are going through, but it's not easy to always do. But honestly, for every problem that every crisis that you have, an opportunity opens. And I think it is in Japanese, even the word for crisis is the same word as opportunity. It's all in the perspective. One last thought on this. Consider that while there are some sources of media nowadays on both sides, let's say, propagating, the scariest shit that you can imagine happening, regardless of where you're looking, then you have alternative sources like InfoWars or like angry guy yelling at you of all the conspiracies to watch out for. I'm not saying that there aren't necessarily some of this stuff is happening, maybe, but are you going to dwell on what realistically, let's be realistic, the horrible things you hear happening, a plane crash, for example, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of planes, the 99.999% of these planes land safely, people get out, go home, enjoy their trips, whatever. Of the one shooting or driving into a crowd of people, murder you hear about, the vast majority of people are living normal lives, going home, maybe having an argument with their wife, taking care of their kids, doing a job. They might not like their job, but let's be really honest here. It's the majority of people are trying to do the best they can with what they have. They're not. You hear about the horrible things way more typically if you watch regular media, news and whatnot, more than you hear about the hundreds, millions, billions of people that are just trying to do the best they can. And the more secure their life is, the more they reach out to help others even. So don't get consumed by the horror stories. But this happened, but this happened. Look into your own life at how much you have to be grateful for. Look at probably your own experience. You might hear about some horrible, it's probably not in your immediate experience. And if it is, power to you. Try to look for the lesson in it, the opportunity to grow. Trust me, it's the small percentage of the occurrences in this planet. It's like the goodness is pushing to get out, and there's these delusions that's creating friction in the meantime. Don't let that consume your attention. That's the one thing, the one piece of power you can give these negative things is your attention. Don't give it all of your attention and your focus. I'll leave you with a thought, as cliche as it sounds, be the change you want to see in the world. Honestly, focus your existence on how you would like to see the rest of humanity behave. Be that. Despite every negative thing you might see going on, be that. Be that source of love and compassion. It will honestly make a huge difference. Right? You can make a difference. I can make a difference. I am. We all are. I hope that maybe provides a little bit of a different framework or maybe a shift in perspective. And I know there's the yeah, but. Just try. Just have some faith. Show some gratitude for what is. Maybe don't focus so much. And if you're really engrossed in the conspiracy theories and there's a certain resource or news outlet that you watch that is really driving that home, maybe take a break from that. This is what I'm going to be doing for a while, even off of social media. And just see if you can look inward, meditate in that peace, that goodness that's in there until it can start to come out. Trust me, man. There's a lot of beauty out here, and it's going to manifest. It is. Be part of that. I hope that helps answer some questions maybe for some people who I've sort of been connecting with in the comments on some of my videos. And I love you guys. I love you all. I'll be posting some videos soon. Like I say, I have some big things coming up. Losing light here. Sun's going down. It's time to wind down. And I may not know you, but I'm sending you love and light. And until next time, stay awake.